Well, there is a revolution in amateur sports nationwide. Women's wrestling. And now the smallest college in Division I athletics, Presbyterian, started the first ever Division I women's wrestling team.
Aaron Teslack, our sports director, joining us here now, and this sport just exploding.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Women's wrestling, the fastest growing sport in the country, according to Presbyterian. About 22,000 girls are wrestling at the high school level right now. But it's only sanctioned at the prep level in 21 states, not North or South Carolina, which means that hundreds of girls are forced to wrestle boys the majority of the time as they come up through the ranks. Now, some hate it, others say it makes them tougher, but each wants to grapple in their own class of girls. A night of relaxing.
Have you studied for it?
It's not the norm for Lillian Humphreys, but the sophomore at Presbyterian, along with her teammates, just made history.
Are you ready?
The first ever home match for the Blue Hose, the first women's Division I college wrestling program. It's coached by one of their own.
It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the little girl that I was when I was wrestling. I was wrestling the boys. How far women's wrestling has come in such a short amount of time.
DEANDA's story resonates with her wrestlers, especially Humphreys, whose love for martial arts evolved to wrestling in 9th grade at Blue Ridge High, the only girl on an all-boys varsity team. Her opponents, also all boys.
When I first started wrestling, I got beat up a lot, and it definitely, I felt discouraged a lot because I was like, well, I don't feel like I'm getting any better. Like I did want to quit, but deep down I was like, you know, if I quit, people were just gonna be like, see, I told you so. So really, I had to push myself, and I had to tell myself that it will get better. I'm gonna get better step by step.
She took a bad beating that year, and I never told her she could quit, but you know, had she come to me and said, Dad, I'm gonna do something different, I said, okay, that's great. But you know, she hung in there.
I had people tell me that, you know, I wasn't good enough. They told me that I wasn't gonna make it. I wasn't gonna do anything with wrestling. And you know, that hurt my feelings a lot, but I definitely think that pushed me to want to prove everybody wrong and, you know, become a D1 wrestler.
Most of the Blue Hose team shares a similar story.
In high school, I was the only girl wrestling, and I had a lot of refs and a lot of coaches that didn't respect me, and a lot of other athletes that didn't respect me.
DEANDA makes sure to get it out in the open in her program.
A lot of these athletes probably came from a similar situation I did because not every state is sanctioned with women's wrestling. So a lot of our athletes on the team understand that grind, wrestling the men throughout high school. But yeah, I think a lot of us share that same, upbringing through the sport, and hopefully as my daughter goes through the sport and the younger girls, they don't have to, they can just wrestle with the girls.
It's still an issue in the youth ranks. Meet KARLEIGH and KYLEIGH Langley, 9 and 8 respectively. Cute as a button when playing with Barbies, already forces on the mat. They hear the comments too, from their classmates.
Some kids in my class, they'll say like wrestling is only for boys and girls should not wrestle.
What about you?
And they say we can't wrestle.
Both already champions on the youth circuit, the Langleys get their revenge against the boys on the wrestling mat. The physical toll of amateur wrestling is brutal. Diet, conditioning, but when you're the one girl in an arena of boys, the mental toughness, that's the biggest hurdle.
When I went to tournaments or matches and stuff, I'd get looks from other people, and my parents could hear other parents talking about me in the stands.
Humphrey's dad, John, says 2 high schools forfeited instead of facing off with his daughter's team. Sexist comments and gestures require an incredible amount of restraint from parents, too.
We were sitting in the crowd, and you know, you would hear all the parents yelling at their sons, you better not let a girl beat you. You know, there's not a teenage boy in South Carolina that wants to get pinned by a girl in front of all his buddies.
It was hard. I mean, you'd sit up there in the stands and you'd hear parents say, oh my gosh, there's a girl out there? And my first instinct is to hammer fist them. And John's like, no, can't do that. So you have to sit up there and not say a word because you want to respect the sport, you want the sport to grow and for them to respect Lily. And we saw that change because it went from, oh my gosh, that's a girl out there, to, oh no, that's that girl. You want to watch your game with her.
Match after match, loss after loss, Lillian never quit. And eventually, the pin for the win.
I mean, the very first match she won, the guy threw his headgear and went and cried behind the bleachers. Lily never did that.
There were several times I had guys who that came out there like, oh, this is gonna be nothing, I'm gonna beat this girl, and then I have videos of it where I then pin them, and then they like sit up and they're like, what just happened? And it's like, you can't underestimate me just because I'm a girl. I think that's the biggest battle, is to really tell yourself, you know, you can do it. You know, it's hard, you know, it sucks. It's not fun sometimes, but like once, you know, you win that big match that you've been wanting to win for a long time, then it's worth it. Everything you did is worth it at that point.
4 years later and more than 30 wins over guys on her resume, Humphries set to sign with a college in Montana to wrestle. But then Presbyterian takes the leap to start the first ever D1 women's program. A move by the smallest school in Division I, which they hope sends a ripple effect across the nation. Now, the startup of the Blue Hose program has been in the works for almost a couple years now. They're still in season right now. Coming up at 10, we bring you part 2, where KARLEIGH and KYLEIGH Langley find out there's a spot in the upstate where they can go wrestle in college against girls just like them. They send a special message to the Blue Hose women who continue to blaze the trail for them.
Tonight only on Fox, it's part 2 of our story on the evolution of wrestling. Presbyterian, the first college in the country to start a Division I women's wrestling program.
Women's wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the country. Sports director Aaron Cheslock here with us, and it's created unique opportunities for these young women.
Yeah, we met a bunch of them in part 1 of the story that aired at 5. Lillian Humphries from Taylor's is one of them, the many wrestlers on the Blue Hose team. And like her coach, she had to battle it out primarily with boys on the mat in high school. Now, this group is looking to spark change and help those following in their footsteps to have an easier path through their journey.
There were several times I had guys that came out there like, oh, this is gonna be nothing, I'm gonna beat this girl, and then I have videos of it where I then pin them, and then they like sit up and they're like, what just happened? And it's like, you can't underestimate me just because I'm a girl.
After a tough first year, Lillian Humphries found her footing as a high school wrestler, going up against boys primarily, but now she's a member of the Blue Hose, the first ever Division I women's wrestling program. A year and a half of preparation, now the debut in a 3-team tournament. Presbyterian against Life University in Limestone, both those schools in lower divisions. And the story for most of these wrestlers, so similar. Years of being singled out as the girl on the team.
We're creating a community in the state of South Carolina to show that women's wrestling's here. It's in our communities, it's in our high schools, it's in our little youth clubs.
We're kind of spearheading that charge with this being the first Division I women's program. So we've talked to them about how important this whole movement is here on campus with the program being started, and that they're basically, you know, they're the foundation of what's to come, where hopefully it kickstarts other programs to do the same thing.
National Wrestling Hall of Famer Mark CODY took the job overseeing the sport in Clinton. The startup of this women's program sparked his interest in the gig.
We're on the forefront of something very special. There are a lot of programs that are trying to start women's Division I wrestling, and to be the first to do that, that's very special for us here. You know, people that have never seen wrestling, or people that have particularly never seen women's wrestling, they're going to be in for a treat just because it's very exciting. It's not going to be boring, I can promise you that.
It's monumental. It's paving the way for girls wrestling everywhere, and it's setting the way for high schoolers that don't think that they're ever going to be able to go do something more, that there is going to be something that's like way bigger, like D1 out there for them.
The sport's exploding, thanks in part to a trail blazed by women, wrestling against sexist perceptions, grappling with self-doubt to persevere by pinning opponents, both physically and mentally.
You know, when I started, I didn't even know girls could wrestle. I didn't know that was an option. And I know a lot of other girls who don't know it's an option. So I want, you know, them to hear my story and then realize that, oh, they can do it. Parents who have young daughters, I hope that they listen to my story and they realize that, you know, it's okay to let their daughter wrestle.
To see her self-confidence just start to really fly once she started wrestling, and realizing that she was doing something that she never thought she could. And I think the door is, I almost want to say it's being kicked wide open. I mean, girls are realizing that just because they are a girl doesn't mean they have to stay away from a male-dominated sport.
Humphries hopes enough girls start wrestling young that it forces high school athletic leagues to change. So when they grow up, women's wrestling sanctioned on the prep level, and they won't have to wrestle the boys.
Now you see girls at every tournament, and now people are exposed to it, and I think they're more accepting of it now. I mean, I think it still has a long way to go, but it's definitely come a long way since when I started.
Now, Belton's got a pair of female phenoms on the mat as well. 9-year-old KARLEIGH and 8-year-old KYLEIGH. The Langley sisters already tout a ton of trophies on the mat. They didn't know what was going on at Presbyterian, so we told them they can one day become Division I women's wrestlers while staying close to home in the upstate.
There's mostly girls wrestling there.
All girls.
All girls
Yeah.
wrestling.
All girls just like you.
That's cool. A few years ago, there was not a lot of girls that wrestle. And now there is a lot of girls that wrestle, which is pretty cool. That a lot of girls could know that wrestling is a sport for girls and boys.
KARLEIGH's got a message for the women whose footsteps she looks to follow.
How cool is it making up something that's never been made up before? Thanks for making it, because some boys could back down girls from wrestling. I think they're tougher because they deal with boys that are some that are stronger than them, taller than them.
We leave at 12.
Humphreys didn't back down, but it's been a long road. One she hopes gets shorter for the Langley sisters.
Well, then maybe you need to be.
Relaxing's short-lived. When you're a wrestler, another match awaits.
You get one.
And Lillian's proud dad doesn't wrestle with the idea of his little girl on the mat anymore.
Yeah, she can take care of herself pretty good.
Now, we reached out to the South Carolina High School League to check on the prospect of a female wrestling division getting sanctioned at the prep level in the Palmetto State. They say, quote, currently we do not have a separate division of girls wrestling in the SCHSL. Female wrestlers compete with the boys teams. This year we implemented a new rule that allows for female wrestlers to compete representing their schools up to 3 times without it counting as a date used by the boys teams. This was done in an effort to grow the female side of the sport. It's our goal that we can offer a girls' invitational at the SCHSL State Individual Championships in the next few years as the numbers of female participants continues to grow. Now, Humphrey says she still dreams of a national championship or getting to the Olympics, but whenever she ends up calling it a career, she wants to coach, help lead the next generation of young women like the Langleys, who continue to travel the country and are starting to get serious national buzz. If you'd like to learn more on how to support them, you can head to our website right now at foxcarolina.com. So very interesting story there. I was taken aback by all the people that we interviewed in that story, just the mental toughness it takes to persevere. And it sounds like everyone's kind of on the same team, that they want this to grow. It's just a matter of more women getting into the sport.
Yeah, and to see the young generation.
Yeah,
those
kind of had past,
KARLEIGH,
present,
KYLEIGH.
future there.
Yeah, how cool is that? And to hear how excited they are to know about that program.
It's funny to hear mom and dad talk too, trying to keep just bite their lips in the stands, you know, just because I'm sure it still takes a lot. I mean, you know, it's a big thing to overcome.
I can only imagine.
So good for her, and glad we got that story out, and hopefully just see it grow from here.
Really cool.
Yep.